I strongly believe Raila is reading somebody's script. That's not the Raila that I knew. Because I want to make it clear to him that every generation has its own pair of leaders. Every generation. Raila happens to be one generation above me. He was a leader at this time, and he has been a leader even up to the other day, or even now he's still a leader, belonging to that particular generation. So you cannot you cannot downplay the role the GNCs are playing in Kenya today. Because what they are doing, they are not asking for a new constitution. They are saying implement the constitution that we gave to ourselves in the year 2010. So I don't rate Osoro as somebody who has achieved emerging society. Just winning 2 elections from a constituency does not give him any credentials that are worth mentioning. So that's a sign of somebody who is an underachiever. You cannot say any time you give birth to a child in Kenya, that child has the right to existence in the first place, and has space within Kenya that must be respected. His or her social distance must be respected, because this country, we belong to this country. The country does not belong to us. We belong to the country. We belong to the soil of Kenya. And anytime you've been born into this country, you have a right just like any other person, even born 50 years ago or 30 years ago or even 100 years ago. So for anybody to tell GNCs that you have no right is to say the least myopic and also a sign of underachiever. Even calling for dialogue is just a pretense, because there is clear report, NATCO report. You would have expected there is also the agreement he signed with Ruto. If some of those issues were funneled out or flushed out, and somebody discussed them or implemented even 1 or 2 of them, perhaps this year would have been more peaceful. So to call for dialogue and even using the word conclave, for me is sacrilege. Sacrilege in the sense that conclave entirely belongs to the Catholic Church, where they aggregate themselves after the passing on of a sitting pope to get a new pope. On the other hand, the conclave that I knew was a certain movie. So I don't know which Raila is referring to. Is it the movie or is it the conclave of the Catholic Church?
We need an intergenerational conclave.
So it was a clear demonstration that is increasingly there is a dictator in the making. He has now proven us right, including the issue of the church that is pretending he wants to build in State House.
Tell me about
God does not live in State House. So he cannot pretend that he has to build a nice structure for God.
Yeah.
If he wants, he can buy a plot, build a church, and hand it over to State House as a donation from a former president.
And you're just in time for Richard Mwenja exclusive. It is July, the year of our Lord 2025. Welcome on board. We continue bringing home conversations that are shaping Kenya's political and governance landscape. Every Tuesday, 7:30 p.m., I'm usually in the phenomenal company of former Minister Honorable Kipruto Arap Kuro. Waziri, great to see you today.
It's my pleasure too.
Such a chilly weather, but you are warming up to it.
Yes, I am, because I had to don this jacket. Yeah, that can assist ward off the cold.
We still need you in this town. Perhaps you are taking really good care of yourself.
I am trying my best, and I leave the rest to God.
You leave the rest to God?
Yes.
All right, Waziri, we are doing this program just a day after the Saba commemoration.
Yeah.
And what came of it was 2 sides of a coin. Let us talk about the side of the coin from the optics of Raila Odinga, a second liberation icon, who has expressed his disappointment over what he terms betrayal of the Saba dream by the Gen Z who want to run a parallel show and sow in seeds of discord. What is your assessment of Raila's remark about the Saba that happened on Monday?
First of all, allow me to send my condolences and sympathy to those who have lost their loved ones. Because it is important for us to start at that point.
True.
Because any life lost is one life too many.
Sure.
And of course, we lost more than one yesterday, even within our neighborhood of Bulbul, Ngong, Ongatarongai, and many other parts of this city. It is unfortunate that we have to lose lives just because of points of disagreement. Because I strongly believe that could have been handled better. And of course, as you saw in the news last night, there was a convoy of Subarus without proper registration plates and numbers that were pervading the entire place and shooting at will and shooting at anybody, not necessarily those who are seen to be demonstrating. It is unfortunate that 60 years later, after independence, we are treating our own citizens the way the British used to treat us under colonial system. Remember, I've told you before, around this Dalamere Terrace at opposite KBC, at the Norfolk Hotel, they used to aim at a random Kikuyu person or random African, and just to test whether their gun was operating well. And aiming at the person, they kill and they call the police. Just from where the central police is, to clear the street of somebody who has been killed by just a trigger-happy individual who happens to have been a settler here in this country. It is unfortunate the same thing is happening to our children in a government that claims it was elected by the people of this country. It is unfortunate more so, given the fact that the president himself proclaimed almost at the time he was being sworn in that never again shall his children be abducted, never again that somebody will be killed using the word extrajudicial killing. So if that's not extrajudicial, you cannot explain it anymore. Either we have gone the wrong way or there is something wrong about our society. We may need actually national prayer breakfast that is genuine, not laced with a lot of name calling, a lot of sarcasm, because we are losing people. So to come back to Raila, I strongly believe Raila is reading somebody's script. That's not the Raila that I knew. Because I want to make it clear to him that every generation has its own pair of leaders. Every generation. Raila happens to be one generation above me. He was a leader at this time, and he has been a leader even up to the other day, or even now he's still a leader, belonging to that particular generation. So you cannot you cannot downplay the role the GNCs are playing in Kenya today. Because what they are doing, they are not asking for a new constitution. They are saying implement the constitution that we gave to ourselves in the year 2010. So for anybody to besmirch the character of these young Kenyans from all over, and let us not tribalize all Kenyans of that particular generation, they are not happy with the status quo. And anybody deluding himself that this is from certain community, that is the wrong profiling of any community. It is the entire country that is not happy with us, the older generation, because they feel we have betrayed the cause of this country. When they talk about governance, when they talk about anti-corruption, when they talk about issues of selective justice, when they talk about selective employment of people from certain ethnic communities and others have to languish, despite the fact that they may have very good credentials. When they talk about promotions in certain sectors, which are supposed to be technical sectors, they are not talking about it just because they happen to come from certain region. They want fairness in our society. They want inclusivity in any decision making. And therefore, for Raila to have said that, to say the least, is below his character, below the respect that we've given him. It is below the fact that we've held him, we have exalted him to a position that he was almost becoming a martyr. Now Raila has failed the test of being a hero of the second liberation.
A pale shadow of his former self?
It is, and I'm saying again, this is not the Raila that I knew. This is another Raila, or somebody is talking through Raila. It is not the Raila that I know.
Somebody is talking through Raila.
Yeah.
And you'd wonder, what interest does this person have by making Raila this person who is just a pale shadow of his former self?
You know, from the community that I come from, in the community that I come from, when a calf dies, you just skin it, and you bring the skin, you dry the skin, and you give to the cow to be licking it so that you can milk. Raila happens to be that what we call in my community awoset. Awoset in the sense that
Sure.
the person wants to use Raila so that those who support Raila will be seeing Raila as a facade, that they will say we are part of this government because Raila happens to be part of it, without the benefit to the calf nor the benefit to the cow. Because, and the milk is taken by the person who brought the skin of the calf and who is milking the cow. This is the way I look at it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, let's advance that conversation further. When you see Member of Parliament Silvanus Osoro tell Gen Zs that the nation owes you nothing, go back to your homes, work harder in life, we owe you nothing. Well, how do you render such a statement from a legislator when it comes to Gen Zs calling out for accountability and transparency in this government?
You know, that is a sign of underachievers. I don't rate Osoro as somebody who has achieved much in society. Just winning 2 elections from a constituency does not give him any credentials that are worth mentioning. So that's a sign of somebody who is an underachiever. You cannot say any time you give birth to a child in Kenya, that child has the right to existence in the first place, and has space within Kenya that must be respected. His or her social distance must be respected, because this country, we belong to this country. The country does not belong to us. We belong to the country. We belong to the soil of Kenya. And anytime you've been born into this country, you have a right, just like any other person, even born 50 years ago or 30 years ago or even 100 years ago. So for anybody to tell GNCs that you have no right is, to say the least, myopic, and also a sign of underachiever.
A sign of underachievement.
Yes, underachiever.
Underachiever.
Yeah, because these are people telling you this country can be better. And I agree with the GNCs. This country can be better. If the 1 point something trillion we are losing every year was captured and put into use in the next 10 years, 15 trillion worth of investment with a multiplier effect will make this country almost be at the top of the scales in terms of development.
Waziri, this underachiever syndrome that you flagged up,
Yeah.
do you owe it to the juvenile excitement that comes with power? I'm talking about now these young legislators, 2 years, the second term into parliament. Do you owe it to that juvenile excitement that comes with power?
It is juvenile excitement coupled with the fact that he has no requisite capacity to stay in power. Anisi is the head that holds the crown. And in Kiswahili they say, kichwa ya kuku haistahili kiraoni. Kilemba ama kiraoni, yes.
Sure.
So that could be a summary of people like
Silvanus
Osoro, people like Sudi, and many others that you are seeing displaying, even Sabina Chege in Lamu, and making remarks that I cannot repeat in such a studio. Because we have to respect people, we have to respect their space, and give them a chance to demonstrate that they are respectable. Yeah.
You've always talked about as long as there's going to be increased arrogance from Kenya Kwanza administrators, then expect Gen Z to show up on the street more often and even in a larger scale. So when Osoro makes such remarks, you're talking about Sudi saying these are Mount Kenya affair. It has nothing to do with national call for accountability or us to be responsible as the leaders. I mean, if you look at it, Waziri, is this arrogance going to be the last nail on the political coffin of Kenya Kwanza? We saw it last year in the run-up to the Finance Bill 2024. It's slowly creeping back. What danger do we risk running into as a country?
Well, I'm more worried about the intervening period between now and the year 2027. Because a lot of damage is being done to the economy, a lot of damage is being done to the people of Kenya, and a lot of damage is being done in destroying institutions. You can see there is a challenge in the institution of judiciary. Parliament has already been overrun by the executive, and even there is disorganization within the executive itself, to the extent that the public service is almost becoming a service to an individual, not a service to the country. There is also a challenge in terms of this space called the media. The media space is being almost shrunk, and all manner of opportunities that were given by the 2010 Constitution are being taken away by this regime, indirectly or directly. So increasingly, it is occupying a bigger space than it ought to occupy. So my worry is the intervening period, because I know 2027, anybody running against William Ruto is going to be our next president.
Anyone running against him?
Anyone running against him.
It's a case of anyone but them.
Anyone but William. Yeah.
Anyone but William.
Yep.
Let's pedal back and talk about Raila Odinga with regards to his expression of disappointment with the Gen Z over what he terms betrayal of the Sabasaba dream. While making that statement from Serena Hotel, you could see that he was flanked by Junet Mohammed, MP Sama Tandi, and George Aladwa. Ordinarily, you would have expected him to be flanked by firebrand, radical politicians from his inner sanctum of ODM. What is the clear message when it comes to Raila standing in ODM itself, let alone in the broad-based government?
The way I see is that ODM is divided through the middle and is likely to get split further as we approach the next general election. And Raila does not seem to enjoy the position he used to enjoy in the past. And this therefore means his influence is waning. And with that waning influence is likely to be ignored as you go towards the next election. You may find a different face of ODM, or ODM may actually disappear from the face of the earth by these individuals moving away to other political parties. You saw Tim Wanyonyi the other day saying that he's likely to run for governor in Bungoma. And of course, the dominant party in Bungoma is not ODM. It's likely to be any other party but ODM. This therefore means somebody like Tim Wanyonyi is one talent that Raila is likely to lose. People like Sifuna, I don't think he's going to move in that direction. People like Babu Wino, people like Orengo, although in Nyanza possibly Raila is still got a say, but as we approach the next election, if he stays in the same position he's holding now and issuing conflicting statements, is likely to lose the respect that he has had in the past. Note the fact that in the last general election, and we were part of the Azimio team at that time, Raila lost a number of votes because there was poor turnout in the Luo Nyanza, where about 600 to 700,000 people did not turn out to vote. This therefore means Raila would have won. Even if 400,000 had turned out and voted for him, he would have beaten the current president by over 200,000 votes instead of the other way around.
It makes sense, Waziri.
Yeah.
And now somewhat to diagnose what Kenya needs so that we get back to the right bearing, Raila Odinga has proposed that we come up with an intergenerational national conclave, the Gen Zs, the boomers, the millennials, they are in to discuss on national issues. We're talking about bringing forth room for national dialogue. It was done right after Gen Z 2024 protest. We saw the town hall meetings. We saw ODM get into this pro-based government under the guise of, we're going to speak on your behalf, amplify further your cry as the Gen Z. Just how much dialogue do we need to get things right, was it in the first place?
Even calling for dialogue is just a pretense, because there is clear report, NATCO report. You would have expected there is also the agreement he signed with Ruto. If some of those issues were funneled out or flushed out, and somebody discussed them or implemented even one or two of them, perhaps this year would have been more peaceful. So to call for dialogue and even using the word conclave, for me is sacrilege. Sacrilege in the sense that conclave entirely belongs to the Catholic Church, where they aggregate themselves after the passing on of a sitting pope to get a new pope. On the other hand, the conclave that I knew was a certain movie. So I don't know which Raila is referring to. Is it the movie or is it the conclave of the Catholic Church?
We need an intergenerational conclave. So that we have a meeting of minds between people like Kirua, young minds like Richard and Erima Wako, and also millennials like Ndegwa Njiru.
You know, what you should have actually used is that we need national conversation or national conversation or national consensus or national, what do you call it, intergeneral whatever convention. But to talk of conclave is sacrilege or is just a drama.
It's just a drama.
Yeah.
Waziri, we're talking about us building our spaces of democracy. And oftentimes you've argued we are where we are as a country because of building institutions of democracy around individuals. You've talked about human beings being fleeting individuals. But increasingly, we are going towards that direction, even in the architecture of our political parties. How do we take now this radical shift and make a paradigm shift that's towards better democracy?
Well, there are a number of ways we can do it. You know, democracy has a number of components.
True.
The basic component is people's will that is expressed either directly or through their representatives. And of course, Article 1 of our Constitution clearly demonstrates that we gave ourselves the current Constitution so that we can make it to further the progress of this country, and we can exercise it directly or through our representatives. The other component of democracy is also the ability to have an informed population, so that when you are making a decision on the basis of accurate information that you've been given. The third is that as you do that, your opinion matters. So those are the basic things that we need. So for me, national conversation or whatever, the answer, because this regime happens to oppose all the three, is just to get rid of this regime, and the regime that comes must start by building institutions. You realize, and without any measure of contradiction, Ruto immediately took over. Before even he moved to State House, he called in UDM and other MPs, independent MPs, those who had run on independent tickets, and even the Jubilee, some of the Jubilee MPs, including Sabina Chege, who was nominated by Jubilee, to his side. That was decimation of democratic institution or parliament. Then he moved ahead to emasculate the judiciary by making some of the decisions that I've been making that end up in court, and they are challenged by a court of law. The third issue is also interfering with individual freedom, either to associate, to think, to express himself through emasculation of various individuals, abductions, extrajudicial killing, and threats, directly or indirectly. And some of the people threats through their own businesses, ensuring that if they feel there is a tax, they can levy on you, they arrive on you, just because you don't belong to their system. So it was a clear demonstration that is increasingly there is a dictator in the making. He has now proven us right, including the issue of the church that is pretending he wants to build in State House.
Tell me about
God does not live in State House. So he cannot pretend that he has to build a nice structure for God.
Yeah.
If he wants, he can buy a plot, build a church, and hand it over to State House as a donation from a former president.
What will I tell God that I found a Mabati church and left it as it is as a president? How will I answer God? That is the question from Ruto to you.
To me?
Yeah. And other Kenyans who are taking concern with the church being built in State House.
But there are so many churches around State House. There is the Anglican church down the road. There is the Catholic church down the road. And remember, the government of UK under the Queen is an Anglican government. But the farthest they could do is to have the house of the bishop of the Anglican church next to State House. Then have the Anglican church down near NSSF. So that if the president or the governor at that time wanted to go to church, there was that road that directly, you could drive directly from State House, the other gate where Uru's house is, down all the way to the church without any interference with traffic. And you can drive back through via the same road. So they made it convenient, but they did not want to mix the church and the state. Because you see, for those who are good students of history, and I know William is not one of them, because he has no respect for history.
Despite being there in Kenya's political history for decades.
Well, he's not a good student of history. I don't know whether he did history, even whether it Wareng, did he go to Wareng or UG, I don't know, before he went to Kapsabet. So when you are dealing with some of those issues, it is part of medieval civilization that the church and the state were fused into one. That's why you hear the Roman Empire. That's why you hear the Ottoman Empire, where religion and the secular affairs of state are mixed in a way that you do not know when somebody is preaching and when somebody is issuing orders or proclamations as head of state. So if he wants to move to that medieval civilization, he will go alone. Kenyans will move on and get other leaders who respect separation of institutions, where the state has its role, the church has its role. What would you do if a Muslim took over tomorrow? So we are going to build a mosque there.
Hindus also want a temple.
Yes, a temple. And how about an atheist? Because in the constitution we recognize everybody, even those who don't have a religion.
Atheist.
So he's going to demolish them again. What will be the use? What he could have done, and this free advice I'm giving to him,
Tell me.
is to have a hall within the structures of State House that every Sunday is converted into a church. Because a church, what is a church? It's not the msalaba that you put. It's not all those other details. A church is a place of some kind of sanctity.
A community of believers.
Yes, a community of believers. Whether you are under a tree or in a hall in State House or in a Mabati structure, is still a church. So he should not really, that thing will haunt him. Because you see, 1.2 billion, a salary of a president times even 10 years every month is about 168 million at most. So you cannot pretend that 1.2 billion is money that he can afford.
But remember, the president has history of having good friends who finance his expensive tours, like the other one to the Gulf. So why do you question the generosity of his friends this time around towards?
But did you realize it was Adani who gave him who financed him to go to America? That plane that was in, the private jet. It was Adani who later on wanted to take that money away from us through the airport.
Which Raila now highly regrets us doing away with Adani in the first place.
That's why I told you Raila is no longer the Raila I knew. This is a different person. Yeah, I met him the other day and we exchanged some niceties and I had promised to meet him again.
So now you're treating him at arm's length anytime you engage on political discourse.
I'm worried because it's not the Raila I knew. He's not the fighter that we knew. The man who could go to the streets, swallow tear gas, and do all the things.
It is said, Waziri, that a good dancer knows when to exit the stage. For Raila Odinga, will be the new dispensation of the Gen Z movement be that point of call to say, now let me go home, I leave my children to advance this fight?
But bless them. You should also bless them because, you know, you cannot just leave your children if you are a father of those children in abeyance. You must also give them some blessing. That, yes, I've had my day. I'm leaving you with my blessings. May this country be better than what we found. Yeah.
He should have done so.
Yeah.
All right, time now for our hero for the week. We're crossing over to Hero's Corner with Waziri Kipchumba Arap Kiro. Waziri, shujaa wetu leo nani?
Let me think through. Let me think through because I still want to give my respect to the GNZs, the people of Kenya who are less tribal than we are, the people of Kenya who are willing to die because of the cause they believe in. These young people, some of whom are still in high school, some of whom are in various colleges, and who own nothing up to now. And the fact that they own nothing does not mean they lack the potential to own. I pray for them that they keep the fight and make sure they sustain the faith so that at the end of the day, whatever they acquire through the right way and also use the resources of this country for the betterment of Kenya. I strongly believe if they keep the same faith up to the end, when they will be our age, they will look back and say, good, we did a good job, we can now retire and wish the rest of the country well.
We finished the fight, we've kept the faith.
Yes, yes, I've kept the faith and I've finished the fight.
All right, there you have it from Waziri Kipchumba Arap Kiro discussing a raft of issues in the world of politics and governance, the talk of Sabasaba, the dream of Sabasaba, whether we're living up to it as a country, and also the what Raila Odinga claims as betrayal from the Gen Z movement regarding us championing for democracy in this country. So much is yet to be discussed on this particular arena. So tune in to our next edition of Richard Mwenja Exclusive, coming to you tomorrow evening.